are fortunate to have a player like Kobe Bryant or LeBron James who come in and set a standard by which, they are toughest on themselves, and the work ethic that they have, everybody else has to rise to their level.
I have to ask you this, finally, once and for all. Who is the greatest of all time? Jordan, LeBron, or you?
The final buzzer sounded, but the real game was just beginning. As the Lakers walked off the court after another crushing, winnable loss, all eyes weren't on the scoreboard. They were on the owner's suite. Jeanie Buss was not clapping. She was not offering polite, supportive smiles. She was visibly, unmistakably upset. Her expression, caught by broadcast cameras in high definition, told a story of deep frustration and simmering tension. And the source of that tension was clear: a series of controversial late-game decisions by LeBron James that didn't just cost the Lakers the game, they may have just cost him the owner's trust. This is the story of the fourth-quarter choices that broke the camel's back, and the visible eruption of a Cold War turning hot. To understand the weight of a single owner's expression, you must first feel the pressure of the moment. The Lakers entered the game clinging to the 9th seed in a brutally crowded Western Conference. Every game wasn't just a contest, it was a referendum on the season, on the roster construction, on the entire LeBron and AD era's final act. The opponent was a young, hungry team they were supposed to beat. For 3 quarters, it was a grind, but the Lakers held a narrow lead. The formula was working. Anthony Davis was dominant inside, role players were hitting shots, and LeBron James was managing the game with poised, if not explosive, efficiency. Then came the fourth quarter. The script flipped. The young opponents, playing with nothing to lose, turned up their defensive intensity. The Lakers' offense, so fluid earlier, began to stagnate. Shots stopped falling, the lead evaporated, then became a deficit. This was the crucible, the exact, high-pressure, must-possess situation the Lakers built their entire franchise around LeBron James to navigate. This was the moment for the king to impose his will, to make the series of flawless, high IQ decisions that have defined his career and bailed out his teams for 2 decades. The entire arena, the millions watching at home, and one very focused owner in her suite waited for the mastery to appear. What followed instead was a sequence of choices so uncharacteristic, so fraught with questionable logic, that it didn't just lead to a loss, it sparked a visible crisis of faith in the very leadership it was meant to showcase. The owner's face would later tell the story, but the court told it first.
It's almost like you have to have that, wear that badge of honor. I'm willing to fail.
Yep.
I'm willing. I've had a terrible night. I still have got to step up, and I fail again when it counts in this game. And be able to go back in the locker room, hold your hand up, next game, ready to do it again. If you have that mentality, you build the scars.
No question.
You're able to overcome the tougher times.
No question.
Get right back up.
2017 NBA Finals. What the hell was you doing?
It's a tie ball game. Oh, why you ain't shoot it? I get the rebound.
With just over 5 minutes left and the Lakers down 4, the game entered its decisive act. This is where LeBron James, basketball genius, is supposed to take over. But on this night, a series of specific, baffling decisions unfolded, each one chipping away at the Lakers' chances, and, as the cameras would later reveal, the owner's composure. After a defensive stop, LeBron brought the ball up in transition. Instead of attacking a scrambling, unbalanced defense, his bread and butter for 20 years, he pulled up for a contested 28-foot step-back three-pointer early in the shot clock. It clanged hard off the back rim, leading to a long rebound and an easy fast-break bucket for the opponent, a 6-point swing in seconds. It was a low-percentage, high-risk shot that felt like an attempt to answer critics with one swing, rather than work for a higher percentage look. On the very next possession, the Lakers got the switch they dream of. The opponent's smallest guard found himself isolated on LeBron in the post. For a decade, this was an automatic 2 points or a foul. LeBron caught the ball, sized up the defender, and immediately passed out to a heavily covered Austin Reeves at the three-point line. The pass was late and off target, leading to a shot clock violation. He passed up a textbook high-percentage opportunity for a chaotic low-percentage one. The analytics screamed for the post-up. His decision-making overruled them. With 2 minutes left and down 3, the Lakers needed a stop. LeBron, guarding the opponent's secondary ball handler, inexplicably left his man to attempt a reckless all-or-nothing steal in the backcourt. He missed. This left his man wide open for a catch-and-shoot three-pointer that swished through, effectively icing the game. It was an undisciplined, desperate gamble from a player known for his defensive IQ, a loss of situational awareness at the worst possible moment. These weren't mistakes of effort or talent. They were errors of judgment. They were decisions that bypassed the system, the matchup advantages, and the collective strategy for impulsive, individualistic plays. For a front office and an owner who invested everything in LeBron's legendary late-game intelligence, witnessing that intelligence seemingly short-circuit in the most crucial moments wasn't just frustrating, it was terrifying. It called into question the very core of their investment. And as the final seconds ticked away, the broadcast director, knowing where the real story was, cut to a reaction shot that said more than any post-game quote ever could.
The Los Angeles Lakers, particularly over the last year or two, is that you hear conspicuous silence emanating from that franchise. You got to speak up with some of the decisions that have been made. You got to tell why those decisions have been made. You got to tell what you feel, what your expectations were, etc. So you don't have players standing before the press saying they arrived in Los Angeles with no expectations whatsoever. You can't have that, okay? So I applaud her for speaking.
As the final, futile seconds drained from the clock, the broadcast cut away from the court. It wasn't to show the celebrating opponents. It wasn't to show the dejected Laker players. The camera lens, with the precision of a sniper scope, found its true target, the owner's suite. And there, in high-definition clarity, was the story. Jeanie Buss was not leaning forward in her seat. She was not covering her mouth in shock. She was sitting perfectly still, her back straight, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. But her face was a masterpiece of contained fury. Her jaw was set, the muscle visibly tight. Her eyes, usually warm and engaging, were fixed on the court below with a cold, distant intensity. There was no sadness in her expression. There was disappointment, sharp and profound, and simmering beneath it, a clear, unmistakable frustration. She did not blink. She did not turn to speak to anyone in her suite. For a full 10 seconds, she held that pose, a statue of discontent, a monument to fractured expectations. It was a silent scream heard by millions. Every fan who had ever questioned a coaching decision, every pundit who criticized a roster move, saw their own frustration mirrored and amplified in the face of the one person whose opinion matters most. The director held the shot, allowing the tension to build. This was more than a fan reacting to a loss. This was a CEO watching a flagship product fail in the market due to operational errors from her most trusted executive. This was a partner watching the other half of the partnership make a series of unforced, costly mistakes. The message was devastating in its clarity. I am not upset that we lost. I am upset with how we lost, and I hold you responsible. Then, as if a switch flipped, she stood up, not with anger, but with a weary, final resolve. She turned her back on the court, said a brief, curt word to an aide, and walked out of the suite, leaving the image of the celebrating opponents as her backdrop. The finality of that turn was chilling. The game was over. Her patience, in that moment, appeared to be over too. The visible upset wasn't a tantrum, it was a verdict, and the entire basketball world had just witnessed it being delivered from the highest seat in the house.
Absolutely. You guys are in the middle of the season. How are things going?
It's not what we anticipated or planned for, but then again, we haven't been 100% healthy. And that was kind of a risk going into the season with a team that's on the older side, or maybe I like to say less young than the other teams instead of older. But, we haven't had our complete roster.
In the high-stakes, symbol-laden world of the NBA, an owner's visible frustration is not a private emotion. It is a political statement. In the hours and days following Jeanie Buss's broadcast reaction, the Lakers' ecosystem erupted into a frenzy of analysis, with every connected insider and media mouthpiece interpreting the tea leaves of that silent glare. The fallout revealed a partnership at its most fragile point. First, the strategic silence from LeBron's camp. Typically, after a controversial loss, LeBron's inner circle or favored media allies might offer context, hinting at fatigue, a nagging injury, or lack of support. This time, there was nothing. No cryptic tweets, no selective leaks. It was a defensive silence, acknowledging that the owner's public disappointment had created a new, unassailable narrative. Any excuse would sound like defiance against a boss who had just rendered a very public, non-verbal performance review. Second, the front office's impossible position. General Manager Rob Pelinka and the basketball operations staff were now trapped. Do they publicly support the owner's visible frustration, thereby throwing their franchise player under the bus? Or do they defend LeBron's decision-making, potentially alienating the person who signs their checks? Their solution was a masterclass in corporate cowardice. They issued a generic statement about reviewing the film and needing to be better in clutch moments, carefully avoiding any mention of individuals. Their neutrality was a tell. In a healthy star-owner relationship, the front office unequivocally backs the star. Their tiptoeing signaled a rift at the very top. Most tellingly, the incident reframed the entire LeBron as solution narrative. For years, late-game failures were blamed on the roster, the coaching, or the role players. The underlying assumption was always, if we just get the ball to LeBron with the game on the line, he will make the right choice. Jeanie Buss's reaction shattered that assumption. Her frustration was directed at that process, not at the pieces around it. The look on her face asked the question now haunting the entire franchise. What if the solution has become the problem? What if the legendary decision-maker is now making legendary errors? This isn't about one loss. It's about the terrifying realization that the safety net they've relied on for half a decade might have a tear in it. The fallout is a franchise suddenly, visibly adrift, with its owner and its star no longer reading from the same page, and everyone else in the organization holding their breath, waiting to see which one of them decides to rewrite the book.
Closer to the end of the game. Right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, excited about today. I'm excited about the opportunity to be able to play the game that I love for another season. And, whatever the journey, however the journey lays out this year, I'm just like super invested because like you just said, I don't know when the end is.
You are of age, which you, I guess, tell your mind you are. And I'm around a lot of young guys.
Jeanie Buss's visible frustration did more than critique a single game. It flung open the door to the three most sensitive, unaskable questions surrounding LeBron James's future in Los Angeles. Each possibility is more troubling than the last, and the owner's reaction suggests she is beginning to entertain them all. Is LeBron, at 39 and in year 21, simply too physically depleted to execute his own basketball genius in the crucible of the fourth quarter? The lazy closeout, the gamble for a steal, the settled jump shot over a drive, these can be hallmarks of a body preserving energy, a mind knowing it doesn't have the physical currency to cash the check its IQ is writing. If this is the case, the Lakers' entire championship model, which demands superhuman late-game focus from its star, is fundamentally broken. The owner's frustration, then, is with the cruel, unmanageable reality of time. More chilling than fatigue is the possibility of decline in the one area thought to be immune, his mind. LeBron's supreme advantage has never been just his athleticism, but his preternatural chess grandmaster decision-making. If that cognitive edge is blunting, if the split-second calculations are becoming half-seconds too slow, leading to contested threes and misread passes, then there is no fix. This isn't a roster flaw, it's an existential one. The owner's look could have been one of horrified recognition. She was perhaps witnessing the first true, inarguable signs of the end of an era, not with a whimper, but with a series of bad reads. This is the most volatile possibility. What if the decisions weren't errors of a declining body or mind, but conscious, perhaps even subconscious choices influenced by the simmering tension between player and organization? A passive-aggressive display of dissent? Taking a low percentage 3 could be a statement. You want me to carry the load? This is what it looks like when I have to. Passing out of a mismatch could be a protest. You didn't get me the shooters, so I have to force it to them. This turns basketball decisions into political acts. If Jeanie Buss saw even a flicker of this possibility in those fourth-quarter choices, her frustration transforms into something colder, a realization that her franchise player might be using the game itself as a weapon in their ongoing, silent power struggle. That would mean the partnership isn't just strained, it's become adversarial, with the basketball court as the battleground. The unspoken question hanging over the franchise is no longer about basketball IQ, but about trust and intent. And the owner's face in that moment looked like someone who feared she might just have her answer.
Very like a familiar feeling that when we got Shaquille O'Neal as a free agent in 1996, it kind of felt the same way, which that is the formula, kind of the way Dr. Buss liked to do things, is to go after the best and, put together the best team he can to play and represent.
Probably their best player so far in the first half. And another look at it. LeBron just goes right by him there, and for somehow he injured himself, didn't he? And another look at it. LeBron just goes right by him there, and for somehow he...
The visible tension in the owner's suite has moved the relationship between Jeanie Buss and LeBron James past a critical threshold. This is no longer about a single loss or a bad stretch of games. The broadcast close-up of her frustration has publicly redefined their partnership, from a shared mission to a conditional alliance. The unspoken contract has been rewritten in real time, and the new terms are stark. Before this moment, the dynamic was one of mutual investment. The Lakers invested money, roster control, and legacy-building power in LeBron. He invested his prime, his brand, and his pursuit of history in the Lakers. It was a high-stakes partnership with a shared goal: more championships. Now, the dynamic has shifted to one of performance-based tolerance. Jeanie Buss's reaction framed LeBron's late-game decisions not as unfortunate mistakes within a partnership, but as failures to meet the specific, high-cost job requirements of his role. Her look said, "I am paying for fourth-quarter excellence. I am not receiving it." The partnership is now transactional. The immense latitude he once enjoyed, the influence over roster moves, the occasional load management, the silent understanding that he would deliver when it mattered, has been publicly called into question. That latitude was granted based on the assumption of clutch time infallibility. That assumption is now broken. This creates an untenable atmosphere for the future. Every remaining game this season becomes an audit. Every fourth-quarter possession will be watched from the owner's suite, not with hope, but with scrutiny. Can LeBron operate under that microscope? Can he rediscover his late-game magic while knowing his boss's approval is now conditional on it? Or does this pressure accelerate the very decline it seeks to measure? For the Lakers organization, this is the point of no return. They cannot unsee the owner's frustration. LeBron cannot unknow that his decisions are being judged from on high, in real time, with visible disappointment. The trust that allowed for bad games and off nights has evaporated. What remains is a simple, cold equation. Produce in the clutch, or the partnership, and perhaps his Lakers tenure, will be deemed a failure. The king is no longer a partner in building the kingdom. He is a highly paid contractor, and the forewoman just showed up on site with a very unhappy clipboard. In the end, a basketball game was decided by a few questionable plays, but a franchise's future was decided by a single, silent, televised reaction. Jeanie Buss's visible upset was more than a mood. It was a market correction. It was the moment the institution of the Lakers publicly acknowledged that its investment in a single, transcendent human being carries an immense and perhaps no longer sustainable risk. The tension that erupted wasn't just about basketball strategy. It was about the terrifying gap between expectation and reality, between the legend they bought and the performance they received on a night they couldn't afford a shortfall. LeBron James now faces the ultimate challenge of his Lakers career, not just to win games, but to win back the unconditional faith of an owner who just showed the world that her faith has very clear, very public conditions. The final question is this: can a king still rule when the owner of the palace is visibly counting every mistake? The next chapter of this high-stakes drama is already being written. Subscribe to see who blinks first.